Hello, and welcome back to Fantasy Turf War, the ultimate showdown where 64 teams battle head to head for fantasy football glory. I'm your host, Lauren Hill, and with me are resident experts Matt One and Cory Bassett. So, Matt, who are you and what do you do?
Uh, Matthew on A. You can find me at Matthew underscore on A. Um, you know, I'm here to give you some great stats, and I'm really excited for the show. I'm ready to do it.
Awesome. And Cory? Commissioner Cory?
Yeah, I'm just a guy pushing buttons in the back, but we're all set here, so I think it's going to be an awesome show. Let's get it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So now before we get started, we're trying to do something new here, if you cannot tell. If you like the idea of a 64-team league, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notifications so you never miss an episode. Your support is crucial to keeping this show going, and it means the world to us. Plus, we have contests lined up once we hit 100 subscribers, so you won't want to miss out on that. And I believe Cory has a very special announcement to make. Cory?
I sure do. As of about noon today, we are finally proud to announce that we are now available not only on YouTube, but also in audio format on all platforms you can possibly think of, except for Apple because they're giving me technical difficulties. But we are now available on Spotify and Amazon Music. So our entire catalog to date is already loaded on there for your listening pleasure. And tonight's episode will be up there first thing tomorrow morning, if not sooner. And thanks for that, Matt. So we are now on Spotify and Amazon Music, and you can take us everywhere you want to go. Download us, and especially with these draft ADP episodes, keep us in your pocket when you need to for your drafts in case you need some last minute information. But it's exciting stuff.
Yay, everybody clap. Yay. All right, awesome. So now that last night we shared that we've crossed 700 views, and tonight, guess what? We're at 801. So this is all thanks to y'all, the listener. So thank you so much. And we're just gonna roll right into segment one. So tonight we continue the topic we started on yesterday's live stream as we cover running backs ranked 10 down to number 1. So save both of these videos as you get ready for your drafts, and we've got you covered. So yeah, go back and watch last night's for 20 through 11. We had some opinions, and we will have some opinions tonight. So we'll be doing this again next week when we cover wide receivers as well, so that we have time to cover everyone adequately and gives you at home more information heading into your drafts. That being said, Matt, let's kick it off. Who's at number 10?
Hey, all right, guys. So this is awesome. I love this part, always breaking down the top 10. It's some of these guys are going to end up in the first round, some are going to be at the top of the second, and some of these guys are going to fall a little bit. And with this first one, Devon A Chain, I'm a little surprised at the ADP at 9.7 is the average ADP for running back coming off the board, 21 overall, so towards the end of the second round. Miami Dolphins, and this one is kind of more of like an interesting one, how fast he's kind of flown up draft boards. A little bit more on the undersized side of the things. He's 5'9", 188 pounds. Super fast. It's one of those things where the coach just loves small, skinny running backs that can get hurt really quickly, and that's pretty much A Chain's MO, right? He got hurt for quite a bit, and but when he was on the field and actually performing, he was fantastic. He had a game where he had 18 carries for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also followed that up with 4 targets for 17 yards and also another 2 reception touchdowns. Like, it's just, he has the home run potential to, go as lightning fast down the field and break away for a 70-yard touchdown. That's the appeal of drafting him so early. But I feel like when it comes to A Chain and the team itself, I feel like he's going to get lost. 1, 2, I don't think he's going to live up to the draft price. And 3, I really think that he's going to end up more hurt than anything else. He couldn't stay healthy last year. I don't see how there's going to be anything different. I didn't see that he put on 12 pounds to break the 200 mark. I didn't see that he worked in the offseason to kind of build up his body and stretch like Patrick Mahomes does when you watch the quarterback, show how he kind of worked out to get flexed and get hit. I didn't see any of that from A-Chain. So I'm expecting for him to kind of just get hurt and miss, as many games as he did last year. And that's what, week 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 for that matter. So, you look at it and you go, okay, is A-Chain going to be a viable pick, and how risky is he a pick as the 10th running back coming off the board at pick 21? And mine is absolutely risky. Now it's high upside, but super high floor. I mean, super low floor. I just look at it like this. I'm going to let somebody else have him. And if I miss out on the crazy season where he manages to stay healthy, it is what it is. But I'd rather have a little bit more safety at the top of the draft.
Yeah, for me, one of the big things I look at when I go into draft season is injury potential, and there are some high flyers that tend to be one of those things that you can almost count on them to miss time over the year. And so I actually had a scenario come up today and last night where someone had dropped him in a dynasty league, and I was trying to figure out like the justification why. And I should have just asked him, but I didn't. But it's one of the main things that I came across was the injury potential. I think the talent's there. I think he doesn't have the star power that some of the other guys we're going to cover in tonight, and having the risk injury definitely concerns me. I look for consistency and volume, and I think the consistency with the injuries is probably enough that I'd stray away from him if I had to. But I'd still probably take him over most of the folks we talked about last night.
Yeah, I agree with that statement of I can see why he's at number 10, but I think this happens every year in the sense that there's always going to be a running back or wide receiver that just comes out of literally nowhere and is everybody's favorite little piece of candy in fantasy that everybody wants it. And he was that last year, even though he did miss so many games. Again, also it's his second year, so it could just be one of those really, really lucky rookie seasons, and then something happens. I will say that head coach Mike McDaniel did say that he's going to plan to be giving him a lot more of a chance. Expects a bigger role in year 2, obviously, with what he did last year. Yeah, I mean, I can see why he's where he is on this list, but I have some trust issues with I guess his experience and the fact of injury. So
Yeah. I mean, it looks, you look at it like this too. Like, you made a lot of great points there, honestly. And if you could double tap and just he'd be your RB2, I'd feel a hell of a lot better about it. But if you're walking away in a draft where he's your RB1, that's where things just kind of get a little bit more on the hesitant side. But I think everything you said is kind of great, right? You see the coach saying, "Hey, he's going to get more opportunity," but also that also rises another risk for getting hurt. So it's just a catch-22, and you just got to say, okay, do you buy in or do you not buy in, or where do you feel comfortable walking away with him in the draft? And excellent points, Lauren. If nobody else has anything else, I think we should move on to this next guy here. And it's Derrick Henry, another risky one. And he's moved over to the Baltimore Ravens. And, for me, I don't think he's done. I think he's still got it. Yeah, he might be a step or two slower, but Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, right? Like, he has just been a workhorse his entire career. And I don't foresee him just, falling off the face of the planet and being terrible, even though we're entering, you know, his age 31 season. We also got to remember too, like, he played behind DeMarco Murray for like his first 2 years and really didn't get an opportunity. And then when he finally did, though, in 18, he kind of like went full ham and was like absolutely incredible. And we've known him to be like this for 6 years of just being a top performer. I think he moves into an offense where the pressure is going to be off him, where, pretty much the box isn't going to be stacked because they don't have, Ryan Tannehill or, anybody else that they've thrown up in there to like be a quarterback. They know the ball now can kind of fly with Lamar Jackson. Also, he's got legs. It's going to free up a lot of stuff for Henry. Now, yes, can he stay healthy? Is that a possibility? Well, last year he did. He played how many games last year? 16 out of 17 because they sat him the last week. Yeah, dude, like, he's going to be just fine. He still had 349. I apologize. He played 17 games and he still had 280 attempts last year. If he even gets 240, which I think is going to be more of a realistic number because of how much Lamar Jackson likes to run, obviously less work, but he's just going to be efficient with it. He's going to have ball and way better opportunity. Plus, I think he's going to be able to come down with the ball a little bit more in the reception game. I think the receptions are going to come up. Honestly, he had 41 targets last year with 33 receptions. I think that could come up just based off of the fact how Lamar Jackson could throw off those dump passes. And you know, quite honestly, Derrick Henry has somewhat of hands. So if you see a decrease in volume in the rushing attempts, and you see the increase in volume in terms of targets, then it kind of balances itself out. And if he can possibly get himself in the end zone more often because he's on a better team, hey, we got a formula for a guy that's going to at least live up to the draft price, and I'm all about that with Derrick Henry.
I so agree. I know he's at number 9 here. This is my favorite person in this show that we'll be talking about tonight. I've always loved Derrick Henry. I have always seen the potential in him. I just think he was put on a team that couldn't quite get him there. Obviously, he's put up impressive numbers in the last 8 years that he's been playing. But to me, he reminds me of like the Julio Jones of the Falcons, where he was just so much talent, just went kind of unused. And now that he's on this like powerhouse of a team, I think honestly, maybe this could be, he was like the hidden little key that the Ravens needed last year, and now he's there. But again, with this offense, with Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, I think it's going to be lethal, actually. I'm excited to watch it, and I'm excited to see him on a team that I think not understands his talent. Obviously, the Titans understood Derrick Henry's talent, but actually being able to showcase it to its full potential.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add because you guys stole all my notes. I did have him ranked as 6th on my list. I think he's got incredible upside. Health's not so much as a concern to me as some of the other running backs. I think this is, like you guys had said already, volume is usually the I'm going to go against everything I just said with the last guy, but volume is key with everything, right? But it's quality of the volume, and I think with so many other options in the Ravens, offense, he's going to have the ability to make use of the time he gets, and I think that helps keep him healthy all year. And I think he's going to have a killer year. So I'm for some God knows reason, I'm all in on the Ravens this year, and I think Derrick Henry's probably the spine behind all of that. They've kind of had all the pieces, and I think he's probably the last one they needed. So.
Well done. Well, this is also the first time Lamar Jackson's even had a running back, so it's like one of those things where I think it elevates just him as a whole. And I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff as long as, Henry can stay healthy and Lamar Jackson. That's just always been the key thing. We all know that Lamar Jackson can't stay healthy for the life of him. Last year he was able to do it. Let's just hope that, he's able to stay healthy and perform, and alongside that, and it's going to be a very fun season. Risky, but not as risky as picking Devonta A-Chain. But now let's move on. Let's talk about Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Probably one of my favorite targets in the second round. He's going off the board at, pick 18 overall, the 8th running back coming off the board. And yes, there's a little bit of talk of, will Tank Bigsby have a little bit more of a role? And sure, he might, take a little bit of the volume away from ETN, but at the same time, you look at ETN's profile and how he performed last year, and you just got to go, well, okay, maybe he won't have as many rushing attempts, but that's fine because the passing game is still going to be there. He had 73 targets last year and 58 receptions and was able to come down with 476 receiving yards. And he still had 267 rushing attempts on top of it with 11 rushing touchdowns. Okay, he's super efficient in those regards. I think the yards per carry is going to come up this year, and I think he's going to make a hell of a lot more out of his opportunities. If he loses 20 carries, which I think is really just going to be the thing, and it's going to be great. If it's a 60 or 70-30 split, he's going to be just fine. I'm not truly worried. If anything, because he's been hurt in the past, because he's, been such a skinny little dude, maybe this is going to be a good opportunity for Tank Bigsby to take off a little bit of the load and keep ETN fresh longer and also healthier throughout the whole season. So I think he's going to be a smash play going into this year. I see him getting, 1,000 rushing yards, if not more, same amount of touchdowns, honestly, because, it's just one of those things. I think he's going to come down with a little bit more of a reception touchdown too. I think we'll see about 4 or 5 this year, and I think the reception totals stay the same, and reception yards are a little bit more on the volatile side. But I wouldn't be surprised if he repeats that as well. Everything that about Travis Etienne points green arrow going up. And the only downside is getting hurt, but that's anybody in football at this point, especially at this position. So if I'm taking best possible outcome, it's going to be Travis Etienne.
Just so everybody takes note of that, Matt will be drafting him in the second round.
Yes.
I don't have too much of an opinion on him. I wrote down in big letters 5 fumbles in 2022. That stat really shocked me. I don't have a whole lot of like favoritism and or not for him. Obviously, a good pick based on the stats that he's put up in the past, even just last year. Again, the injury of missing basically, I mean, he missed his rookie season, which I think is a little sad on the heart there for him. But yeah, going into his 4th year, this could be, it's assumed to be a continue of success here. Hopefully it is for him, but I don't, with the risk of missing an entire season off of injury and then coming back to a season where you have 5 fumbles, that just freaks me out in fantasy terms. So that's my opinion on him.
Yeah, and I think you can chalk some of that up to the maturity of just he's not been. I mean, obviously he's been playing football for a while, but he hasn't been in the league very long, and there could be a number of things. Fumbles are a concern. I do think Matt's right, and that he's trending upward. When we talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's always an interesting thing because they're not always playing the most advantageous kind of schedule. So, for him, he's a little bit more of an unknown quantity to me. If I have to pick between him and Derrick Henry, I'm probably going to go Derrick Henry, just because I know the potential, the star power is there if it shows up. And like I said, injury is kind of a thing for everybody, and I haven't really seen the proneness outside of that first season. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, something I like too, just to throw this out there before we move on. He finished as a top 24 running back 70% of the time last year, and 47.1% of the time as an RB1. Those are fantastic kind of numbers for that. You're not getting lower than a RB24. About 70% of the time he's going to be out on the field, and then the possibility of being an RB1, which is a top 12 running back, at 47% of the time, just shy of 50% of the time. That's fantastic odds of having a guy that's going to produce for you consistently week in and week out. So, just to get that last bit of information in on him. But this next guy is also really interesting. He's going on. It's Kyren Williams of the Los Angeles Rams, 8th running back off the board, pick 17 off the board. So it's funny. So depending on where I'm drafting in essentially, right, I actually try to double tap this. So I'll try and get Kyren Williams in the first at if I'm picking 11 or 12, and then swing back and go and steal Travis Etienne. It's like a great 1-2 punch. Kyren Williams has all the possibility, all the potential essentially to have the Christian McCaffrey workload. Yes, they brought in the rookie in the 3rd round. I forget his name, but essentially to take the workload off. But what's the workload, truthfully? There's nobody even behind him to even care. So if they take away 30% of the workload, okay, cool. I'm still good with that. Kyren Williams catches the ball. He rushes the ball an amazing amount of time, and he was absolutely successful the whole way down. He just missed a couple games. He only played about 12 games last year, but still finished as, the RB6. It's incredible. He only did this in 228 attempts last year. He had 1,144 rushing yards. He had 12 touchdowns, 48 targets and 32 receptions, and he had 206 receiving yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. Okay, so a grand total of 15 touchdowns between reception and rushing, and had 1,350 total yards of scrimmage. Kyren Williams has all the upside in the world, and in a Sean McVay offense where you go back and you look at all the success they've had, even with guys that coming off the street that they signed the next day. God, I had this in my head earlier, but essentially any running back they put behind that back in that backfield essentially is successful no matter what. You look at the history of that team, they're going to be good. I'm all about it. Draft Kyron Williams with confidence. I think honestly, there is a world where he finishes as the RB2 next year.
Ooh.
That's a bold claim.
It's a full claim.
So I'm not against that. I had him finishing the year as RB4, but I think we had the similar mindset of that. He's got a really good draft value for where he's at right now, and then he's going to finish better than where you're drafting him. So I think in terms of a draft pick, you can't really go wrong with him. I'd feel very comfortable, like you said, with the volume. Volume is everything. And like you took it right out of my mouth, right? If he takes a certain percentage of the share, that just means that the Pareto principle, right? The 80% that he does keep is going to be more effective. And I probably just butchered that. Someone's probably lighting me up in the chat about it. So, but no, I think I feel good about it. Although they, the Rams always scare me a little bit because they either show up or they don't. It seems like when it comes to playoff time, and that's probably just my bias from the Raiders not getting the stadium with them. But it is what it is.
He's a little butthurt. Still, it's okay.
No, I'm not. I'm not upset at all. You're upset.
Oh wow.
I like him. I think that Kyron Williams, honestly, y'all's predictions of where he is going to finish at the end of the season, I think are very accurate. The stats that he's been able to put up in the 2 years that he's played, this being the third year, have been insane. And honestly, looking at some of the people that we're about to talk about that are further down this list, I would draft Kyron over some of the other people. I think, yes, the youth of him only being 23 years old is kind of scary. And obviously, like Cory said, everyone is basically prone to injury in football in general, just with the how aggressive the sport is. So I feel like you can't hark on that too much unless we're talking about like Saquon Barkley, who we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, I honestly think he should be in the top 5. I know he's yeah. So that's my opinion.
I'm all fair points. Honestly, I don't have anything to add. So if we're done, I think we'll move on to this next dude here, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. Gibbs honestly profiles as another guy that can honestly finish as their RB1. It could kind of supplant Christian McCaffrey in a year or two. He had a fantastic rookie year. It was actually truly impressive, especially even with not really having the backfield to himself, sharing it with David Montgomery. He had 182 rushing attempts last year and was able to produce at 945 yards to go with it, along with 10 rushing touchdowns. Like that is fantastic for a rookie season, along with with having that little of workload, right? And then to boot, he had 71 targets last year with 52 receptions and brought down a receiving touchdown. He also had 316, receiving yards. Like everything about that screams, hey, year 2 should be really good. The only thing is, David Montgomery is the clog, right? You're going to need an injury for him to kind of get to that 20 rushes a game and to really just hold it down. Now the reception game to being the catching running back, that's all him. Like that is his role. It's carved out for him. But for him to get that full Christian McCaffrey workload, we need Montgomery to go down, get traded, or I don't know, something along those lines, or leave the team for next year for 2025. And I think, this dude will be getting drafted as the number 2 running back next year. I love Jahmyr Gibbs wholeheartedly. He's awesome running back. He proved himself. And usually when you see a running back do this good, usually his sophomore year is even better, bearing any injury. So I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's going to be solid. I think that the only thing that kind of keeps him from, super eliteness is David Montgomery. So honestly, he's going to be a guy I would like to draft. I feel comfortable walking away with him as my RB1. But what I really want to do is pray is the first 2 weeks he kind of has a slow week, and then I'm going to be buying low on this dude everywhere, and then just enjoying the benefits of going after him after the fact.
Yeah, for me, there's probably one thing I will stay away from in fantasy football at all costs, and that is running back by committee. When you start talking about, you have two running backs in the top 20 that we've talked about yesterday and today from the same team. My concern is share, and when you talk about David Montgomery being that second guy, he's not a rookie. He's been around. He came from another team, so he's had the production where he knows what he's looking for and looking to do. And my concern would be heavily on the volume that is to go around between the both of them. I just tend to avoid any scenario where there's two running backs on the same team that are both semi decent running back 1-2 viable options, because one will usually vulture the other one to a point of irrelevancy, and I just trying to stay away. But I do think you're right that if you can, you don't want to hope that someone gets injured, but like if you get him, your goal for the year is to see an increase of volume due to an injury from David Montgomery, and I think it's probably decently likely to happen for a couple games, probably not the whole season. But yeah, running back by committee is not something I tend to like, or I guess yeah, I don't know if he's true running back by committee in that sense, and maybe I'm using the phrase wrong. But anytime there's two good use running backs in the same team, I'm concerned about volume.
Yeah, I
Makes
mean, you
sense.
look
Yeah,
at
I
it.
mean,
Good.
okay. Yeah, I mean, my really the only concern, and y'all both stated it, is the fact that the I just blanked. The Lions are the only team in our 20 down to one breakdown that have two running backs in this list. And I think it obviously Jahmyr Gibbs is ranked higher, so he's your RB1 if you're going to draft either or. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're really just depending on an injury on Montgomery for Jahmyr Gibbs to get his max potential. So I don't know. I mean, I had him last year in a league, and I expected almost more from him. And I know he did a lot with the stats that Matt said, but I don't know. I just expected a tad more, more of like a boom, like Mr. Number 10 that we talked about, Devon Aiken.
A chain.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my opinion.
So that's a fair question. Then, do you think he keeps most of the shares over Montgomery, or do you think they split time?
So I would say they're going to split. So they talked about getting him more involved in the offense. They talked about giving him a little bit more workload, splitting it up and evenly. You know, the only thing is he will be vultured down at the goal line, right? Like Montgomery is the goal line guy. But the beauty of having Gibbs is he's a home run hitter as well. He's fast and he could break off for a 40, 50-yard touchdown. And that's kind of where he's going to be successful, where he's going to have to go in and make those strides. So I'm kind of okay with it. You know, he finished as the RB 12 last year, and that was with receiving 40 less. I'm sorry, he finished the RB 10 last year, and he had 40 less carries than Montgomery, who finished at the RB 13, and he had only 40 less yards than him, and he ended up with two less touchdowns. So honestly, I think that the workload is fine. I think there's a safe floor in Gibbs if he could even just repeat what he did last year. He still returns that first round value. And on top of that, there's an upside and a ceiling play where he just explodes and he finishes as a top 5 running back overall. So I think when it comes to Gibbs, that's kind of the safety net of it. It's just the fact that you got to pay that first round price, because if Montgomery does come in here and just say, "Hey, dude, like, okay, I'm getting more touchdowns. You ain't getting it this year," and he isn't able to get the home runs as often as he wants, then boom, then you're going to see a downward grade. So I mean, I don't foresee that happening. I think it's more likely that the only thing that's going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an injury.
Yeah, fair point. And I caught the baseball reference there, but we had a comment come in from the chat, and it seems to be similar to what we had all said. Is that Cameron Bassett, and I'll preface that there's two of you in this chat, so I don't know which one's which. But Lions are a high-scoring team. I just have to hope that there's enough opportunities to feed everybody. So it's kind of the old Patriot days when Brady used to just randomly pick a target that he would favor that day, and you just hope there's enough to go around. But I don't think it's that much of a scenario, but I think there's still a concern at least of who's going to get the points today. So something to pay attention to, but I think you're right. You've got some real potential there, on some real upside for the draft value that you're getting him at. So cool.
Sweet. Great point there. Let's move on. Let's talk about Saquon Barkley. I'm wearing his jersey. It's just the wrong team because he went to the wrong team. Stupid Eagles.
Oh.
Anyway, um, Saquon Barkley is behind the best line he's ever played for in his entire life, his entire career. Even at Penn State, I'm a Penn Stater. He did not have a good line. Like, I don't know what happened at Penn State with their lines, but that didn't work out. Let me go down that rabbit hole. Giants could never have a good line, even when they drafted guys high. So that is part one, right? He has a great line. But part two is this is also the best offense he's ever been a part of either. So like, you have guys downfield, you have a quarterback that can run, you have other threats than Saquon Barkley. You don't have to stack the box whatsoever. It's going to give him a lot of freedom. And also, too, he has hands. So when Jalen Hurts is trying to extend the play, all he's got to do is dump it off to Barkley, and he's going to turn that around and possibly hit a home run and break off for a 70-yard touchdown, or he's just going to be able to create and get like 20 yards. And also, he's going to have the receiving game. Like, we all know Barkley's got hands. Now, the biggest risk about Barkley is, and why he's a risky pick, but he's worth the draft price, is his injury history. He's been hurt a lot of the time. And it sucks, right? Even last year, he missed a bunch of games. Like, you look at what he did last year, and he played a grand total of, I apologize, of 14 games. He still missed 3 games and still finished as the RB 12. So, I mean, he still was fantastic, but I had him last year and he wasn't usable at times. Like, I didn't want to start him. I didn't start him for the championship game, even though he went completely off. He was more of a liability, but that was also due to the offense of the Giants, right? Daniel Jones was hurt. I'm also not a Daniel Jones guy, so I don't think the performance would have been any better even with Daniel in there. And plus, we had nobody to throw to, and Dylan Waller sucked. So, you just look at that, and I think Barkley's performance was more indicative of the Giants' terribleness at that point, and not of his actual performance. So I think going to the new team, being on the Eagles, is going to be fantastic for fantasy, and unfortunately for real football as well. So overall, I think he's going to be a great draft pick, just a very risky one, but he hits, and he plays even 15 games, and Lord have mercy on everybody. You caught a steal because the price is right too, because he's going off the board right now at pick 11, which is the end of the first round, and you could smash that, turn around, and pick up Kyron Williams in the second, and you have a stellar 1-2 punch of a running backs. And good luck to anybody going up against you week in and week out.
That was very opinionated.
Seems like you got something against the Eagles, but I can't put my finger on it.
A little bit.
Seems like he may be a tad hurt that Saquon Barkley left. Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. I have mad trust issues with Saquon Barkley. I literally have his injury report pulled up. He's been injured 8 times in the last 6 seasons. And I have drafted him multiple times within those seasons where he just doesn't do anything, or just simply not enough for where the price it is to pick him and get him on your team. I want him to do so well. I really do hope he does great on the Eagles. I need to choose my words wisely here, talking about the Giants. Was he given the max amount of potential on the Giants? I don't believe so. But being on the Eagles, like Matt said, is a lethal combination. I think he could be insanely good. I think he could have a career year, if anything. He is entering his 7th year, and he's 27 years old, so he is getting up there. But yeah, I just think your only risk there is just his injuries, and they do come quite often. So I don't know how confident I would be in saying draft him, just because I do have trust issues. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit off of that. So I think when you talk football, you talk players in general, a lot of it is what the definition of success is: preparation meets opportunity, right? And so I think he's got the preparation there, and I think the opportunities might have escaped him the ways he probably would have preferred to in the Giants. And I don't think he is. How do I put this nicely? I think he's behind the curve, and I think his best days are unfortunately behind him. And if I'm looking at him in a draft perspective, I think the next four we're going to talk about are probably almost a different tier of running back to where they're going to be off the board by this point. If I'm having to look at him or Kyron Williams or even Derrick Henry down to that point, I may go with one of those other options just because I think that they have better days ahead of them. And so I think the only time you would consider them is you would consider him is definitely has to be a redraft league. Any sort of longevity thing, I would not play that route unless you can get him for a steal. Then go for that. But yeah, his injury is a concern, and I think his best days are behind him.
So I hear that sentiment, but I have to disagree on the best days behind him. Like, this is kind of like a weird stat and something like you really got to like look at like in terms of like just looking back at like his history of just being a running back, and especially for fantasy, right? He's actually only had 2 years outside of the top 12 in terms of fantasy finishes. It was the year he tore his ACL and was done for the year, and it was the year he missed a good chunk of the season where he played only 13 games, and Giants were absolutely horrendous in 2021. 2022 he finishes in the RB6 and he played 16 games. Even last year he played 14 games and still finishes the RB12. In 2019 he finishes the RB10, and in 18 his rookie season, which was his best season, was RB2. He was just riddled with injuries. And you know what? You look at even Christian McCaffrey, you look at guys like, the Dalvin Cooks back in the day. You look at other guys at the top of this list that are going to be coming up, right? Like Breece Hall missed an entire season. Bijan Robinson doesn't have enough behind him. Jonathan Taylor just missed a whole season, and this past year was absolutely horrendous, but he's going ahead of him. And, the only person to have the only two people that have a better offensive line is Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall. And Saquon Barkley's in probably as good of an offense as Christian McCaffrey. I think ultimately the upside is absolutely limitless. If he misses 3 to 4 games and that's it, as long as they aren't the last 3 to 4 weeks, I think you get a serious return on your draft pick this year. So the risk level is probably 5 out of 10, but that's for any running back at this point. You're going to pick a running back at all, there's a chance they're going to get hurt. But at the end of the day, who has the highest ceiling and best floor? Barkley's up there with everybody else that we're going to speak about. He's just getting him at the best price at pick 11.
Yeah, so we can take away two things from this, right? Is that one, you're converting yourself into an Eagles fan for this year, and then two, you feel confident that he's going to return the draft value. So my question is, you're kind of jumping ahead with Bijan Robinson. You're going to take him, or you're going to take Saquon Barkley?
So it depends. So like if I'm staring down where I have an opportunity, which would be number 3 overall. If Bijan's there, I'm taking Bijan because of one, just what he showed off in his rookie year, and yes, he's younger, and two, I like the Kirk Cousins situation. Yes, I'm going to pick Bijan. He's the safer pick at the end of the day between them. But the fact that I'm able to get Barkley later is the part that's kind of like attractive. Like I might pick him over. I might even go a couple picks earlier and pick him over some of those wide receivers that I don't really trust. Because, the guaranteed production of getting a rushing attempt over a wide receiver that's reliant on target and the offensive flowing and pressure on the quarterback is a little bit different, where I have a guaranteed workload of getting the ball behind the line.
Yeah, so when we're talking here, though, we're talking 7th overall and 10th overall. So there's not necessarily a scenario where you're going to have the opportunity to get both, or be able to get Saquon lower, right? So. And I think I pretty much agree with what you're saying about picking up Bijan. But okay, so when you're looking at that, then were you going to pick up Saquon, or are you going to pick up Jonathan Taylor?
I'm probably going to go Saquon. I like the line better.
Yeah.
I've seen success with running backs. Yes, Eagles like to kind of alleviate and run with a two running back system, but Barkley is going to be the main guy. They're paying him a lot of money to be that. And they'll just be giving him a rest in those aspects. Whereas Jonathan Taylor, we have the unknowns of Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson plays super reckless and can get hurt again. And then it could be the Jonathan Taylor show. And if I knew going in that Anthony Richardson was going to get hurt, then I'd probably draft Jonathan Taylor over him. But being that, I think that he's going to get robbed a little bit more on those regards. Whereas, you look at the offense that is the Eagles, and we know their identity. There's going to be opportunity for Saquon Barkley to score at all times and probably still get 10 to 12 touchdowns, even though you can't really predict that.
Okay. Yeah, I think you might have convinced me on that one. So good points. You're now an Eagles fan. Got it.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna go jump off a bridge now. But all right, we brought him up, right? So it's Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. He's going off the board as pick 10. So this is going to be the decision, right? Who do you pick? Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley? I already laid out all the information for Saquon. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor missed the whole year before with a whole bunch of injuries, unfortunately. Not the whole year, I apologize. Missed a good chunk of the season and played only 11 games, but finished putrid. Even last year, after missing, the start of the season, finally making his way back, wasn't really super effective until, I would say, week 12 is when he really started getting going. He had 21 points in week 12. Week 16, it was the next time he played because he injured again, and he had 10 points, then 16, then 26 in week 18 when nobody plays anymore. So like it was an irrelevant week. But he had a couple of nice little starts in like week 7 at 19 and week 9 at 15 and week 10 at 14. Like there was a little bit of spurts. There was only 1, 2, 3, and I'm not even counting week 18. So 3 RB1 finishes and, 1, 2, 3, 4 RB2 finishes out of that. So like it was good consistency. But at the end of the day, you just got to look at him and you just go, okay, Jonathan Taylor, what are you? What is the offensive identity? What is the line going to look like? Those are things I all want to know before I can kind of confidently draft him. Rushing quarterbacks do play a part. And yes, I should have the same fears with Jalen Hurts and his 15 rushing touchdowns last year. But again, they never really had a dominant running back that can be super great. Like if you're going to try and compare, DeAndre Swift or even Miles Sanders, those aren't dominant running backs. And Miles Sanders, before he left the team, had a great running back year. So my choice, I guess, at this point is going to be, Saquon Barkley. Jonathan Taylor's is a little bit more risky, still worth picking, but I think he's more of the 11th pick in my book. And I think by the time we get to draft season, it's going to flip.
No, honestly, I agree. I know I just talked some mad disrespectful words to Saquon Barkley, but I think I want to say I have a love-hate relationship with Jonathan Taylor, but I think it's more of a hate-hate relationship. I don't really like him. I think he reminds me a little bit of like a prima donna, in the sense that he gets injured and then he can't negotiate his contract in time, and then the unable to perform thing happened, and it was just like I remember drafting last year, and like in my family draft we use Yahoo, so it tells you exactly like who the best option is at your wherever you are. And I remember him being like that main one for so long, but he had the unable to perform tag on him, and I was like, I don't really want him. And then my uncle ended up getting him, and he did obviously he did what he did last year in the 7 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, but he like barely really played in that many games. And I just, for that to be your first round draft pick, I like to feel confident in the fact that my player isn't gonna like Antonio Brown himself from my league or the NFL itself. So I don't know, like he wouldn't be my first round draft pick. I would take Saquon over Jonathan Taylor. I think the security, even though like I just talked some mad game against Saquon Barkley and his whole injury past and everything, I would feel more confident in drafting Saquon Barkley than I would Jonathan Taylor.
Fair points. Yeah, and I think when it comes to Jonathan Taylor, you're talking about, do you believe in Tony Richardson going off, or do you think he's going to spend time out, or do you it's really, where's your comfort level there? If you you can make the argument either way, right? Because if you believe in the system, then all rising tide raises all ships kind of thing, where more production for everybody is good for Jonathan Taylor as well. But then also if Richardson goes out, then you could also make the argument that Taylor's going to get all the workload there because they're going to have to figure out what to do. So there's some upside to both. I still think I would go Jonathan Taylor because I'm more on the belief train than the Saquon Barkley train, just because I think I've probably been burned enough times with him, either missing time or mispicking the week that you're putting an RB or a running back in there. And when you're talking about running back one, you don't want it to be one of those unknown quantities where you're going to have, you're going to set your running back and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to count on points, and then something goes wrong. Your running back two, that happens a little bit more often. With your running back one, I want some more comfort, and I think I'm going to find that more in Jonathan Taylor than I would with Saquon Barkley. But I've kind of been all in on Tony Richardson as well, so I kind of believe in the rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. So
I love it. I love all the takes there. Great job, guys. I do want to move on. I'm getting excited to talk about him. That's Bijan Robinson, playing for the Atlanta Falcons, going off the board at pick number 7. It's crazy though. I don't think that's going to last. I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts I'm doing because I live for fantasy football just as much as I live for baseball, and this is my favorite time of the year. And I'm seeing him go off the board like 3, 4, and it is just fun. He is a great pick overall. What he did last year was absolutely fantastic, honestly. A rookie season, finishing at what, RB9 on probably one of the worst offenses in the league. He had 214 attempts last year. He had 976 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, unfortunately 4 fumbles, which hopefully that can be corrected. That's something you can teach. You can't teach the talent and the raw speed that he has and all the tangibles. And then on top of that, he catches everything under the sun. 58 receptions last year through 86 targets, which the targets he was getting, the passes he was receiving were really atrocious. So you can't hold, the 67% catch rate against him. I feel like this will be better coming into this year. And he had 4 reception touchdowns. On top of this, they now add Kirk Cousins to the offense. So they all know that now every team knows that the ball isn't just going to be runned up the gut, right? Now the ball has a possibility to be passed. Um, you know, they got Kyle Pitts out there. They got Drake. They got London. They have a lot of weapons on this team now. Drake London's awesome. They added Darnell Mooney. You know, even Rondell Moore's there in the slot. Like, there's a lot of passing options for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is already healthy. He's already practicing. They cleared him medically to practice. These are all good signs. So as long as I don't hear there's a setback or that he's looking a little slow because Kirk Cousins, tore his Achilles last year and it exploded like a firecracker, I think that everything should be fine and this offense should actually be great. They paid him like he's going to be great. He has $100 million guaranteed. So this is all going to translate back into how Bijan Robinson's performance is going to be, because if the Atlanta Falcons even take a 40% step forward in terms of offensive production, Bijan Robinson is going to have that much better of a season. You could probably look at like a 1,400 yards. You could look at the touchdown numbers to go from 4 to probably 10 or 12. And then the reception numbers should be absolutely monstrous too, because you saw Kirk Cousins support, Dalvin Cook. You look at Dalvin Cook seasons with Kirk Cousins. Why can't Bijan Robinson have those same seasons? Everything is kind of pointing up and in the right direction with Bijan Robinson. This kid is a true talent, and I am really excited to see what he's going to do this season.
yeah, fair points. So this part of the draft is interesting, or this part of the rankings is always, I'm not going to say straightforward because someone always screws it up by picking a kicker in the first round. But at this point, you're not necessarily justifying why to pick him. You're looking for reasons why you shouldn't, in my opinion, right? So if Christian McCaffrey's on the board, you're going to take him. There's probably no second guessing it unless you just hate the guy for whatever reason. So when I get to this point, I'm going to pick up Bijan if he's on the table. He's mine. Do I feel good about Falcons running backs? Yes, when it's the only one. So yeah, and that goes back to the whole running back by committee thing over the last few years, right? A few years ago, it was always a 2-person team, 3-person team. As long as they're not, winning the game 28-3 going into the half, like, they're probably good. But sorry, I'm just ragging on the Falcons at this point.
He's just offending me over and over and over again.
No, I think for anybody at this point in the draft, if he's on your board at the top of your list, you're taking him. You're going to feel good about it. I think you've got a tremendous upside about it. Would I be concerned? No, because like you said with the Kirk Cousins system, I think you're good there.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a solid first round pick. Like Cory said, obviously, if you're given that first slot, don't go for Bijan Robinson. Definitely go for Christian McCaffrey if you have the possibility and or chance. But I think that a lot of people, being from Atlanta and the shirt that I'm wearing right now, people are excited about Kirk Cousins. We had our hearts broken, like Cory brought up in the 2017 Super Bowl, and the vibe has really not been the same since in the city. We have needed a new quarterback, and lots of things, some puzzle pieces have been rearranged, and I believe that, or hopefully believe that this is the year that things actually make a change. And I think the combination of Bijan and Kirk Cousins together, is going to be an awesome duo. And forgive me for making this awful pun, but it may be the start to the Falcons rising up again. I had to. Thank you so much.
Where's the button
Hopefully
here?
that hits. Hopefully that hits the SEO.
Oh, no, that's the wrong button. Yeah, no, there we go. There we go.
Wow.
That's much better.
There we go.
Awesome.
She just got fired live on the show. Legit is what just happened.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting. I think he put up awesome numbers last year, just being his rookie year. He is only 22 years old. I think he has a lot coming for him. Bright future, and yeah, I'm excited to see him and Kirk Cousins together. So
yeah, I think when you're talking about like riding the ship for the Falcons, I don't know if Cousins is going to be the guy that does it for you, but I think Robinson is definitely the right direction for now. And then it's just about finding some younger talent instead of Cousins. But I think the team's moving in the right direction, so I think it's a good time to be a Falcons fan and be on the Robinson train. But yeah, that's good.
Wait, so you don't want to talk about Penix Jr., the best draft pick of the whole draft, where they already paid a quarterback and then picked him with a top 10 pick? Good job. They got a future right there.
I knew this was going to be asked. Yeah, I did not claim the Falcons during NFL draft week. I never have. I never will. They always surprise me. Without a doubt, will always surprise me. They never draft the thing they need in the first round. It's always, how can we mess with fans this year? How can we get the most media attention? And they do it every year. So
it is good for shock value, that's for sure.
Yeah. But all right, enough of ragging on Lauren. Let's leave her alone.
In the entire city of Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep going there, but let's
come in the comments. Yeah.
Let's talk about Breece Hall. Honestly, the number 2 running back on the season, being drafted this year in ADP. Going off the board at pick 4. Honestly, if I have the second overall pick, I'm picking him. I look at him in a lot of different ways, right? So you look at Breece Hall, and first you look at it, he tore his ACL. It was a rough tear. Was able to come back. Was able to play quite a few games last year. He was healthy for all 17, but really didn't get the workload probably until about week 5. Then he took over and he was absolutely phenomenal, and he was just really ripping it. He was incredible all year long, and they were without Aaron Rodgers. He finishes RB4 with 223 attempts, 994 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 76 receptions on 95 targets, 591 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. They were one of the worst offenses in the NFL last year, and he still finished as the number 4 running back, which is absolutely crazy. Usually, you see running back production go down due to the fact that they're not performing, so that means you got to pass, and you lose out on the rushing attempts. That's why you saw a low rushing number of 200 and change, where like 223, but you saw the reception numbers going. Now, I think the receptions kind of stick the same because now you just have Aaron Rodgers, who loves to dump the ball off, and you saw what he was able to do with Aaron Jones. He's going to be able to do it to Breece Hall, and Breece Hall is a way better running back than Aaron Jones ever been. And on top of that, the rushing attempts should hit about 250, 260, 270. That's kind of 270 is where I have him statted out to. And I think the rushing yards are probably going to be about like 1,300. And I think the rushing touchdowns are going to be up too. Aaron Rodgers is going to put them in a position to score. They're going to want to run. Salah loves to, rush the ball up the middle of the end zone. So, this is going to be an offense that is going to be smash and dash, and Breece Hall is going to take full advantage of this. And the best part about this is year 2 coming off the ACL, and that's when you see a player really hit it. That's when they look their best, and honestly, It's just going to be a better season overall, both physically and production, because of the team as a whole. And the best part of this whole thing, they went from having one of the worst offensive lines last year to now ranked by PFF to number 7. I cannot wait to see Brees Hall this season. It's going to be a smash.
Yeah, so you nailed it perfectly when you said that Aaron Jones is not going to be as good as Brees Hall, right? So when you're looking at value, look what the quarterback does. Look at how he does his reads and what he checks down to. Brees Hall will benefit, no doubt, from this relationship as long as Rodgers gets past the second, you know,
Play.
set of downs.
The first 50 seconds.
Yeah. So, in that sense, yeah, I think that's a great way to approach it. And again, it's going back to a draft perspective, right? You're gonna, the Christian McCaffrey has obviously not been talked about yet, and so if Hall's on the board, the decision is not going to be very hard for you. And I think the only decision to be made would be between Bijan Robertson and Brees Hall. So where do you both stand? Or which one are you picking if you see the two on the table?
Lauren, you can go first.
It's a good question. I think their stats are pretty darn comparable from last year, looking at them. I think if you have an option, one or the other. Oh, honestly, see, I have bias though. I have bias in the sense that I want to say Bijan Robinson, just because the fact that Brees Hall did come off of multiple like leg injury scares last year. But I would be excited to see him actually playing with Aaron Rodgers if they are going to be compatible together or not. But without having that answer, obviously I know he is at number 2 for a reason. But I feel safer picking my own little Bijan Robinson, my own little city boy. So
Okay.
And nobody will fault you for that either. Honestly, Brees Hall is my pick. They both have fantastic lines too. Atlanta has a number 2 overall line rated by PFF, so that's a better line than what Brees Hall has at 7. It's just the offensive flow, knowing the identity of what this team could be, having a Hall of Fame quarterback versus a quarterback that can't perform during primetime games. Kind of gives me a little bit more of an aspect, and a guy that's been doing it for, I don't know, almost 20 years in the NFL, I think is just going to be better. I also like the offense and the offense of what Nick Sala brings to the table, with the whole Jets organization versus what the Atlanta Falcons have been. They've been such a turd for so long. Can they get rid of the losing culture and start taking that step forward? So I just kind of want Brees Hall a little bit better. I think he's just going to be the guy, whereas Bijan Robinson, I think, is still going to deal with some growth. Whereas I think year 3 is going to be his year where he absolutely explodes.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I don't want to upset either of the co-hosts, but I'm gonna also have to side with Brees Hall, just because I think like you said, you look. It's not just a running back; you have to look at the entire system. And when you talk about a quarterback that checks down to his running back, just right over the top of the line, that's going to do well for Brees Hall, and I think that's where he's going to stick out above Bijan Robinson. But now, if you're going to say that at the end of the year, Robinson's going to finish 2 and Hall would finish 3, I would not be surprised whatsoever. I just think that's probably a safer call on my side, just from seeing him, seeing Aaron Rodgers work year over year and beating the Bears, and yeah.
I get it, touchy. You're a Green Bay fan. Got it. Let's get this last guy out of the way. Let's talk about CMC.
Who?
Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, the San Francisco 49ers. We all know he's the best running back in the league. Plenty of injury history, but has been healthy for 2 straight years now. I think he's totally worth the first round pick. I don't think there is any other thought of picking anybody else. He is just a cheat code everywhere he goes. I'll give you a quick synopsis of his stats, but after that, I don't think we need to speak much about it. Dude had 272 attempts last year. He had 1,459 rushing yards. He had 14 rushing touchdowns. He had 67 receptions to 83 targets, 564 receiving yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns. So a grand total of 21 touchdowns in total. literally 2,000 total yards of scrimmage. It is an absolute great season from CMC. Is it repeatable? Possibly, because he's probably one of the best running backs I've seen since like Adrian Peterson and so on and so forth. So I love Christian McCaffrey. He's an animal of his own. He is the number one overall pick in every single format. No question, hands down.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's bound to agree with that. He sorry, we talked about yesterday. He's going into his 8th year, and we talked about multiple people yesterday that are also going into their 8th year. Excuse me, flipping back. Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, and they are all obviously in the 20 to 11 category, and then Christian McCaffrey find himself all the way down to number 1. So obviously age has nothing on this man. He keeps getting better and better. I don't know. I don't know anyone that isn't a fan of Christian McCaffrey, Mr. Run CMC. He's I think your top choice. If you're given that top choice in your draft, there is literally no other option, in my opinion. Like, why would you choose anyone else?
Yeah, and I'm not going to add too much to that other than, I have an obvious bias with him being out from Carolina and seeing him play a couple times, putting up great numbers, going end over end, amazing talent. And like you said, probably nothing since Adrian Peterson has there been that kind of caliber. I don't think really age matters, and I think at this point with Christian McCaffrey, you've gotten enough return and trust from him, absent injuries, to where you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt until you see otherwise. And there's no way I'm not going to pick him up as a first round overall. So that's an interesting question for the both of you then. So is there any format, any point system, any type of league that you imagine not taking him first overall?
No, he's the number one smash pick in every league, unless he gets hurt.
I wouldn't. I literally, I wrote, not even for prep for that question. I swear that was not staged. I literally wrote top choice, all caps. Do it. Not a wide receiver. Not a quarterback. No other pick.
The only scenario I ever came up with was dynasty leagues where he's already picked up by a team, so you don't have a choice. You can't pick him up. So other than that, that's all you got. If you see him on the board, you're taking him. If for some reason the guy who gets the first overall pick doesn't take Christian McCaffrey, you should capitalize on their mistake, because that is probably what's going to cost them the playoffs, if I had to guess.
Yeah, honestly. Well, now that we've gone through 10 all the way down to 1, I would love to ask y'all what your opinion is of, like, maybe just obviously we know the best option for your bang for your buck, but like out of 1 through 10, what is your favorite personal, like, resonates with you? Maybe it's your wild card of like, I really have hope in this person, and just do, like, I know obviously we talked about each person, but I want y'all to do a little recap on your favorite.
Okay. My favorite draft picks, obviously outside of the, depending on where I'm drafting, right? So like if I'm not getting the first 3 picks, I'm towards the end. My favorite picks are like Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams, and Travis Etienne. Those are my 3 kind of go-to, and that's 1-2 rounds. And then, as you get deeper into it, my later pick from like my RB2, if I don't double tap, or even for my flex at that point, I love grabbing me some Joe Mixon, some true Kenneth Walker action, and a guy we didn't talk about on the show that is really moving up the draft boards, and that's James Conner, who has gone since literally last night up 4 spots in ADP. So he's another one I want to snag everywhere as either my RB2 or as my flex.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Connor's done me well as an RB2 in the past, especially when Le'Veon Bell went out, MIA, whatever you call that season. But I think the best value I can think of is probably Ramondre Stevenson from New England. No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely not. I would probably go when we're talking value. I would say probably. I don't know why I go back to it, but I think Derrick Henry's going to have a great year, being in a good system where he can really benefit from everyone else taking some of the workload off, I think that's probably the best value I can see overall. I could make a case for Kyron Williams as well, but I think that's probably where I'm at in terms of like best value.
No, honestly, I agree. Out of the 1 through 10 that we just talked about tonight, I stated it when I talked about it initially, but Derrick Henry, I really do think that's going to be something so exciting to watch. Obviously in fantasy, but outside of fantasy, just as the NFL in general. I think the Ravens are just going to be an explosive team this year. With him added, it's going to be, I already said the word, but lethal. And then if we're talking what we talked about yesterday, I did write down, funny that Matt said that, James Conner, even though we didn't talk about him yesterday. I had James Conner on a team, but he was when he was a Steeler, so I want to say like 2018. And it was when I knew nothing about fantasy football, and I saw that he had a boom game, and I was like, heck yeah. And then he just kept going. So I have a respect for James Conner. For years now, and I think that he's going to be an interesting player to watch as well, even though he is getting a little older, but I would put trust in him. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like it.
Sweet.
So I think we've got all top 20 now over the last two shows. So make sure you keep your episodes downloaded on your phone, so that this way you can pull them up if you need some quick last minute tips. You kind of got our takes. Yeah. Lauren.
All right.
Oh, this is my part. This is my screw up. Oh,
This
there we
is
go.
your-
Yeah, there we go.
This
That's why
one.
everyone's staring at me like an idiot. All right, so Commission's Corner will be quick because I know we're a little bit over time. So I don't have a whole lot of updates except for one. We have hit our 64 teams. So we have a league. They have not all been announced as of yet because they still have to go through the registration process, but I have 64 commitments. We have a full league, which means all the fun shenanigans can now commence. And all we ask is that if you like what we're doing and you think what we're doing is at least at a bare minimum interesting, if you find it entertaining, make sure you're doing all the likes, comments, subscribes, and all we ask is that you bring one friend back. Bring one friend back, and then we'll start to grow as a community. It allows us to keep doing what we do. And, I think the interviews have been interesting so far. Hopefully you guys aren't sick of hearing me every day. And, some of them are really interesting. We had the Shelter Dogs for Veterans one. That's a deeply personal one. I would encourage everyone to go check that one out. They're doing great work over there. All of the interviews have really hit hard in terms of their messaging and their products, and just good people doing good things, which is exactly what we wanted the league to do. So please go check them out, show them some love, and follow us along, because now we get to see all these teams and interviews that you've all been watching at home. They start to interact with each other, and that's when the fun begins. So I'm excited to see it, and it should be an exciting August for the rest of the people at home to watch. Because now you guys all get to pick like divisions and punishments and draft methods, and yeah, this would be great.
Can you make sure to put me and Matt in the same division?
Oh, so I
we
don't
can
finish
bully,
last.
so we can
Got it.
Yeah,
bully
I
each
say,
other.
Matt, did you just want the win? Like I just give you the win, right? So
Whoa, be respectful.
okay.
Fine.
Okay, actually, yeah, don't put us in the same division, please.
Look, and honestly, now that we have a full picture of the league, right? You have 64 teams. I don't think any of them's a gimme. So, usually you've got that random aunt cousin kind of thing where it's like they're not really paying attention every week. I don't see any of these teams as something you can just not pay attention to. So it's going to be some work for you all, and I'm excited. And good luck. I'm so glad I don't have to play this year. So you guys have fun.
Well, awesome. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you're following along on all of our social medias, and please sign up on the website. Our social media is just at Fantasy Turf War on Instagram, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, obviously, from where you're watching this. And like Cory said, we are on Spotify and Amazon Music now. So you can listen to us easily on your morning commute or commute home. So Matt, where can people find you, or do you have anything to shout out?
You guys can find me at Locked On Fantasy Baseball on Instagram. You can find me at Matthew_on on Twitter, X, whatever we call it these days. I still can't keep up. You can also find me, on any platform where you may podcast. Got some questions regarding football? DM me. I got you. And you know what, guys, this is gonna be a great season. I'm really excited to, see what teams are out there and what products these guys offer. I'm super excited just for this whole experience. Thank you for having me. This is gonna be a great season.
Yeah, and you can find me at Cory Bassett NC on Twitter, Cory Bassett everywhere else, all the Fantasy Turf War stuff. I appreciate everyone who watched tonight live. You're missing the Hall of Fame game to tune in with us, and I appreciate that. And hopefully you guys find enjoyment out of this. I don't know if the Texans and Bears are going to be any enjoyable, but maybe. So at least you spent the time with us, so we provided some value for your drafts. But it's going to be an awesome season, and I cannot wait to get into it. So let's get at it.
And of course, I'm Lauren Hill, and you can find me on Instagram, lauren.elizabeth.hill, on Twitter, lhill716, and you can find me on LinkedIn if you are oh so curious. So again, thank you for everybody that watched tonight. It was a lot of fun, and now you have your 1 through 20 running backs, and you should feel a lot more educated for your draft. So be excellent to each other, be kind, and we will see you next week. Bye.
All right. See ya.